Town to resume her contribution.
Thank you, Speaker. When I was speaking in relation to this bill, just for the record, we were about to hear the former Premier Dominic Perrottet's last speech, and so that provides a context for those that may be reviewing this in the future as to why there was a slight shift in focus. But I wanted to turn back now, if I can, to the Greens being very, very keen to see these new objectives in action.
I'll just ask you to hold there and stop the clock, please, clerks. Can I ask all those behind the chair to be vacating the chamber with their conversations, please? Thank you, Member.
Thank you, Speaker. And so I wanted to talk particularly around the impact that these changes hopefully will have, not just in the electorate of Newtown but beyond, but particularly talking about in the electorate of Newtown, wanting to see that we know that there is a rail corridor with lots of parcels of public land along that rail corridor. And recently our community has welcomed the announcement that some of this public land near carriage works will be developed to deliver over 200 social and affordable homes, which will make a not insignificant dent in the growing social housing waiting list in our inner city community. This is the kind of socially responsible activity integrated with other government departments and plans that the Greens hope will work to ensure that TAM can deliver more moving forward. We hope that this agency can play a key role in ensuring that public land is put to appropriate use, like building housing to meet the needs of our communities. But we know that this is not possible and cannot be achieved alone by this legislative reform, that there is an entire ecosystem of land ownership and government agencies that must also be reconsidered and reevaluated. Under the previous Liberal National Government, public housing estates were slated for demolition and redevelopment, and tenants were left facing the risk of eviction. While nearby publicly owned land was available, Homes New South Wales was identifying public housing land to demolish because it sat in a separate silo of government owned by Tahi. In the electorate of Newtown, we have also seen that plans to develop Tech Central, again on public land owned along the same rail corridor, prioritise the delivery of office space and commercial retail space over public and genuinely affordable housing. If agencies like TAM being created by this legislation are actually there to address, and I quote, the interests of the community, they must work collaboratively with one another and other departments to avoid replicating this mistake. I would also want to turn now briefly to the amendments brought by my colleague, the Greens member for Balmain. These are sensible and straightforward amendments, and I urge the government and the opposition to consider them closely. In its current form, the bill absolutely fails to recognise the nearly 1 in 5 people living with a disability in New South Wales who use active and public transport. Too many of us in this place can list the local train stations and bus interchanges in the electorates we represent that are not accessible to those who use mobility aids, and this needs to change. To this end, the Greens amendment would expand the proposed definition of active transport to include manual wheelchairs and motorised mobility devices like chairs and scooters. They would also amend the bill to ensure accessibility is front of mind in any of the efforts to activate public spaces near transport infrastructure. The amendments moved by my Greens colleague, the member for Balmain, would also lay the framework for Transport for New South Wales to play a leading role in driving a mode shift away from private vehicles and toward public transport. And they would ensure Transport for New South Wales takes a people rather than a customer-centric approach to designing the transport system and put the needs and expectations of people first. Active transport is crucial in ensuring our communities are healthy, sustainable and connected. And the Greens absolutely support any efforts to make walking, cycling, riding or scooting, wherever you need to go, easier and more accessible, and to integrate these alongside other modes of public transport. All too often, the responsibility has fallen on residents' action groups and community members to lead the push for active transport against a road-obsessed transport system, with the government of the day dragging their feet in response. I will never forget the irony in the middle of the campaign against the privatised toll road WestConnex of running into the then Nationals Road Minister in my electorate of Newtown, wandering and having a lovely time going for a walk in Redfern enjoying the city streets while imposing on our communities a privatised toll road that would see them slumped with this level of incredibly private toll expense and the unhealthy nature of toll roads. Speaker, can I seek a brief extension given the interruption that occurred earlier?
The question is, the member of Newtown is seeking an extension. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried.
Thank you, Speaker. To this end, the Greens are looking to expand the proposed definition of active transport to make sure we're in a situation where we are seeing the Government Department and Transport for New South Wales taking that approach to people as opposed to customers, an approach that is designing a transport system that puts the needs of people first. And I will recall and remind the current New South Wales Labor government that when we first saw the inaugural Minister for Customer Service be anointed in this chamber, those that were at the time on the opposition benches joined with the Greens in mocking and laughing the idea that we would have a Minister for Customer Service because of our long-held commitment to the idea of the people of New South Wales indeed being citizens and people, not customers and consumers. Sadly, in the shift to government, we have not seen that neoliberal rhetoric shifted back into the idea of recognising that we should be people-centred in our approach to delivering public services. And I would encourage the current New South Wales Labor government to recognise and audit that language and those shifts to return back to a people and community and citizen focus rather than a customer and consumer focus. All too often we see the responsibility has fallen on residents' action groups to be able to push this, and I wanted to say that I absolutely want to give a shout out to the Friends of Erskineville, the Alexandria Residents Action Group and the Red Watch in Newtown Electorate, who have for more than a decade been fighting the good fight to urge the government to deliver an active transport bridge across the tracks at Redfern between the Everleigh and Erskineville sides to allow a connection between carriage works and that part of our community. It is important that Transport for New South Wales not just promote but actively pursue active transport solutions wherever possible, and that is why I would urge everyone in this place to support the amendments moved by the member for Balmain. All in all, this bill reflects a step in the right direction towards transparency and the management of our rail network and other assets, and towards a future in which active transport is the cultural norm. And we start to see a shift away from the dangerous actions of Tahi and the jobs for mates that we saw under the previous Liberal National Government. We need to commit to the idea that public land is indeed for the public interest, and that public infrastructure and public agencies must be working for and with our communities to deliver for the people of New South Wales. I commend the bill to the House.
I thank the member for her perseverance under difficult